Duck Dynasty.
Yeah.
You folks seen that show?
Yeah. Well, show the picture you two together.
This guy is,
Okay.
I mean, he is a piece of work. That guy with that beard kept me on the bench for 2 years.
Now, a lot of people
he was a starting quarterback at Tech. I was his backup.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, seriously, he was good, and I couldn't complain. I never complained about being his backup because he was just that good.
Right, right.
And then he just quit one day.
That's Terry Bradshaw, of course, Hall of Fame quarterback with the Pittsburgh Steelers and CBS football analyst. And he was on the Tonight Show back in October, and he was talking about Phil Robertson of Duck Dynasty and how when they went to college together, Phil Robertson was the starting quarterback, and he sat on the bench, did Terry Bradshaw. How do I know that? Noel Sheppard told me. He wrote about it and put the video up on newsbusters.org, associate editor, who's with us right now on Malsberg's Media Madness. Hello, Noel.
Hello, Steve.
So that's an interesting revelation, certainly.
Yeah, I was actually very, very surprised by that. A friend of mine told me that yesterday, and actually he said he had originally seen Terry make those comments on Arsenio Hall, and when I was searching, it turned out he also made the comments to Jay, so I thought I'd give Jay the plug, because obviously Jay needs all the plugs from me he can get, of course.
Yeah, so by the way, speaking of Jay, you think these CNN rumors are valid, or you think Fox, or what's going to happen to him?
Well, I'm sure that Zucker has talked to him, but why would Jay want to go work for the man who suggested that he be replaced by Conan O'Brien?
Yeah, and go
that seems illogical.
Absolutely, and go if he could get a deal at Fox, you know, on over the air, it would be a no-brainer. All right, but let's focus on this Duck Dynasty stuff that's going on. Your take, first of all, on what A&E did.
You know what's interesting? I mean, I saw you. I think you were on with Ann Coulter yesterday.
Yes.
And I think you mentioned, or maybe it was Dr. Drew, you mentioned that you've never seen it. I've never seen it either. My wife has brought it up to me at one point and said it's hysterical.
Yeah, Ann said it was her favorite TV star from a show she's never watched.
So shows she's never watched, exactly. I think that actually the person who's had the best commentary on this is, believe it or not, Andrew Sullivan.
Yeah, and you wrote about that, and I have that. He said he was befuddled by the firing, yeah.
Right, and his feeling was what you're getting with Duck Dynasty is a vision into a redneck lifestyle and thought processes and whatnot. And again, I've never seen it, so I don't know whether Andrew was correct on that, although certainly from the pictures one would assume that's the case. And so if you're doing a reality TV show about rednecks, why are you surprised when a redneck makes statements that are anti-homosexual? It's not like he was speaking out of character. This is what the guy and there's been other discussion here. I think Ann made a good point that speaking with you that this guy's views, Robertson's views, are probably shared by 25 or 30% of America, maybe more. I mean, certainly the religious folks that I know. And I don't feel this way, but believe that homosexuality is a sin and is immoral. So I mean, this is a religious thing. This isn't a bigotry.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm not sure why they rushed into this. I think that what they could have done is they could have. I mean, my goodness, it took MSNBC 3 weeks to do something.
Right. Right.
And his comments were obviously a heck of a lot worse, and then they took a long time in making their decision. I'm not sure why they had to be so quick. I think what they could have done here is they could have measured America's reaction. They could have measured the reaction of their audience. I mean, the reaction has been vicious. I mean, at this point in time, frankly, I get the feeling what's going to occur is the family is going to say, okay, fine, goodbye A&E, and they're going to find another network that's going to put this on. And A&E is going to look very foolish.
I agree. Let me ask you this theory. I mean, certainly when it was Sarah Palin and MSNBC, they don't really care much about pressure from conservative groups. But how much did GLAAD and HRC, how big a role do you think they had in getting this done very quickly at A&E?
Probably big.
Yeah.
Probably they were going real nuts. Although it's interesting, there's been a number of, including Andrew Sullivan, a number of gay writers. I mean, Camille Paglia is also part of the LGBT community, and she came out and said that this is
Stalinist. Yep.
Yeah, this is Stalinism. But one of the things that kind of irk isn't the right word here, but we on the right were all very, very angered by what Bashir said about Palin, and I don't remember anybody on the right talking about, well, he's got the right to say this. This is a free speech issue. Now, of course, the difference here is he is supposedly a newscaster, or was, and the comments were extraordinarily vile. But wasn't it his opinion?
Well, but he advocated that a specific person should be defecated and urinated on in her mouth. So I mean, you know, he just was. I don't think certainly that the Duck Dynasty went that far. But speaking of Palin and speaking of Bashir, let's put up a tweet from two tweets on Cut 24 here, Will. That from another story you wrote at Newsbusters.org, and this is kind of bizarre. You got Sarah Palin tweeting out free speech is an endangered species. Those intolerance, quote unquote, hating and talking on the Duck Dynasty patriarch, blah blah blah. And anyway, then Piers Morgan responds and says the woman who drove out Martin Bashir, and he retweeted what Palin said.
Right.
Sarah Palin drove out Martin Bashir?
No. I know. She's the target of the vicious attacks. And by the way, just to put a final exclamation point on the previous issue, the difference, of course, between Robinson and Bashir is Bashir represented MSNBC. Robinson does not represent A&E.
Right.
So there is a difference there. But as it pertains to Piers Morgan, this was a stupid comment on his part on two levels. Number one, obviously, Palin was the subject of the attack, okay, and it was a completely unprovoked attack. So to say that she had anything to do with this man being fired is absurd. I mean, as Noah Rothman commented at Mediaite, the folks at 30 Rock aren't paying any attention to Sarah Palin about their program. That was a really stupid comment. But also, it turned out that on two different installments of his own show, Morgan practically called on MSNBC to certainly censure or punish Bashir, or maybe even fire him.
Yeah, so, I can't. He comes out with these contradictory things almost all the time. I don't really follow him. I don't know where he's at.
Well, because I'm not sure that he pays attention to what he's saying. And by the way, he's got good company because nobody in America does either.
I like that. We're talking to Noel Sheppard here on the Steve Malzberg Show, Malzberg's Media Madness, associate editor of Newsbusters.org. All right, let's change a little bit, and let's play Cut 25 here. Morning Joe talking about Obamacare, and here's Mika Brzezinski weighing in at the end of this. Here's Cut 25.
Right, the idea that you couldn't get the website to work, well, next year you get patients. And what happens then? And that's the real concern. That's what those numbers are saying.
Well, the Obama administration isn't administering the health care itself.
Well,
thank God.
We'll see.
Listen, it's going to turn around, I'm sure of it. And, it may be a political stopper, but I'll tell you that no one else could do it. I know what you're all thinking right now, but it's an impossible feat to try and get health care going in this country, universal. It's just impossible, and they're doing it.
Yeah, thank God Obama isn't actually administering health care. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought that was a very, very truthful statement on her part. And it is interesting, and I was discussing this via email with Joe Scarborough this morning.
Always name dropping. Always name dropping.
Always name dropping. Well, because we are talking about his show.
Oh, okay.
But what was interesting, because I had written about Chris Matthews was on Morning Joe this morning and made a comment about.
I have that next, my friend. Yep.
Oh. Well, okay. Well, we're transitioning. we're just kind of transitioning lovely today. But he makes a comment about Obama being the biggest political loser of the year.
Let's hear that one, and we'll continue. Here's Cut 31. We'll Cut 31.
Let me ask you, political losers of the year.
It's a terrible year for the president. I mean, it's a terrible.
Can you go back a year? 1 year ago, the president was getting ready for his second inauguration. So much hope. This has been a terrible year.
There's another piece of it, which you're subtly getting at, which is not just it's a bad year in terms of the rollout. There's an erosion in interest. It feels like a very long presidency now. It feels like the 7th or 8th year of a presidency. It doesn't feel like the 5th. There wasn't that rejuvenation that comes with re-election. There wasn't any, certainly was never going to get a honeymoon from the other side, but there was no sense of wow. And I think that's hurt him a lot.
Yeah, there you go. That was surprising, of course, from Chris Matthews.
Very surprising. And what I discussed with Scarborough by email is there's no way. I mean, well, first of all, interesting that Matthews is truthful at 7:30 in the morning. Right? Because 12 hours later or 11 and a half hours later, when his show goes on in prime time tonight on MSNBC, that's not what he's going to be saying. I guarantee you, and I'll be watching in about an hour.
He's got Pierce Morgan disease, maybe.
Well, no, I guarantee you what he's going to be talking about is the stronger than expected GDP numbers that came out, and the new highs in the stock market, and how wonderful the economy is doing, and why isn't Obama getting credit? I don't believe that he's going to be talking about Barack Obama being the biggest political loser. So what Joe and I were discussing was how many of his guests are more honest and truthful when they're on his show than when they're on MSNBC later in the day. That's interesting.
That is very interesting. Well, listen, my friend, have a very Merry Christmas and have a great holiday, and we'll speak to you next week, hopefully the day after Christmas.
Sounds good, sir. We'll talk to you then.
All right, take care. That's Noel Sheppard, ladies and gentlemen. Read him at newsbusters.org. Read them all at newsbusters.org. He's associate editor there. Great site. That if it didn't exist, boy, I would know so much less. I got to tell you that. All right, we're coming back, and we're going to speak to David Solway. He is a Canadian poet and essayist. He will join us. We had him on for a very short period because of technical difficulties a few days ago. I wanted him back, and he wrote a really brilliant piece on Barack Obama as we wrap up the week leading into Christmas on the. You like that? Wrap up the week. If you're watching on Newsmax TV, you see what I'm doing. It's like I'm directing traffic on the Steve Hallsberg Show on Newsmax TV and radio.